Hey friend, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and today I'm going to show you how to set levels for drums, bass, guitars, keys, and vocals in a mix. We're going to be looking at setting levels in a mix today, and this is going to help you get a better understanding of how to balance all of the different instruments and all the different parts in your track as you bring them up. But before we dive in here, if you're ready to go a little bit deeper into the mixing process in its entirety and really start to hone your workflow as an audio engineer, then I have just the thing for you. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and it's just a simple PDF guide that will walk you through the entire mixing process step by step to help you get professional and radio-ready mixes without any more of the guesswork. You can get completely free access to that guide as well as a bonus workshop that goes along with it, walking you through the guide in an actual mix situation using the link below in the video description. All right, let's jump into the video here and let's look at setting levels. I've got a finished mix pulled up here, but I've got everything pulled down. So all the instruments are zeroed out here, well, pulled down to negative infinity here inside of Studio One. And we're going to go through the process of pulling each of these up the way I would in a real world mix situation. So we're going to start at the drums here, at the kick drum, and we're going to move all the way through the track. The way I kind of line things up in my mix session is pretty close to how I will bring things in level-wise. I start with the drums, then I go for the bass, and then I'll usually go for either the keyboards, depending on what's more prominent in the mix, either the keyboards or the guitars, then the lead vocal, and then the background vocals here. So I'm going to hit play here, and we are going to start at the kick drum. I'm going to pull this up, set it level-wise, and then everything else is going to build on top of our kick drum here. So if you're using Studio One, a little quick shortcut, if you command click on anything, it'll pop it up to 0 immediately. It's a nice easy way to bring something up into the ready position here. The kick drum's feeling good there at -0.4. For kick drum and snare drum, a good starting point for me in terms of level is right around the -12 mark here on the meter. As long as I have those hitting around there, I know I'm in a good place to build the rest of the track on top of that. So we're going to continue along here, and we're going to bring in our snare drum.
In the city.
That's feeling really good to me, either -1.7 or up at -1.3. It feels a little pokey when I have it up that half dB there, so I'm going to leave it around -1.7 here. I did flip to mono here, so as we bring in some of these stereo elements, I'm going to bring them up in mono first and make sure the mix feels good sitting in the center before I pop it back out to stereo. If you can get your mix sounding good in mono, just sitting in the center field here, when you pop it back out to stereo, it's going to feel that much bigger and that much more full. I'm going to bring in the overheads before I bring in the toms here. So I'm going to pull both of these in together, overheads and then toms, and then we'll look at our room tracks here. All right, those are feeling pretty good there. I kind of use the cymbal hits to balance in the overheads to get them sitting in a good place relative to the kick drum and the snare drum here. And then the toms, I usually want to feel pretty even with the snare drum. So as the drummer goes through a fill, as he goes from the snare drum across to the toms, it doesn't feel like one jumps way up in volume. It feels like an even roll across the kit. Now we're going to bring in the room, the mono room here, and then the stereo room, which is the Percussion close. These are going to bring some ambience to the kit. So I got a mono room and then a stereo room here. So on both of these room tracks here, I'm going to be listening for different things. On the mono room here, I'm listening mainly for how it affects the bottom end, so mainly the kick drum. I leave more bottom end in on the mono room than I do on the stereo room. So on the mono room, I'm listening to how it affects the kick drum. When I pull in the stereo room here, I'm going to be listening to how it affects the snare drum. You can see once I get to where I want it inside the track, it usually doesn't take much adjusting from there. Once you find the spot where it feels good, if you go past it, you're going to know, okay, that's a little too much of that, or, oh, maybe that's not enough of that. So once you kind of find the spot where it feels good, it only takes a couple clicks from there to be like, okay, that's too much. I need to pull it back to where it was, or, oh, just a bump more, and I'm okay. So as you push it up, if you need more, you can push more. Once you kind of get to the spot where it's a little too much, you can pull it back a touch and you'll be right where you need to. So as I pull up the stereo room here, I'm going to be listening to how it affects the snare drum. So right there at plus 1.2, it felt pretty good to me. I kicked the snare drum up a little bit because as I brought in the mono room and the stereo room here, I got a little bit more energy on the kick drum. But as I pulled up the Percussion here, or the stereo room, it didn't give me the same increase on the snare drum that I got on the kick drum. So I pulled up a little bit more on the snare drum to balance it out, and then consequently I pulled up the toms a little bit as well, so they stayed balanced with the snare drum here. Those are feeling good. I'm actually going to bring in the bongos and tambourine right here. Sometimes I'll pull percussion in last just to balance it better in the track, but the bongos and tambourine go right along with the drums here, so we can pull these in right now as well. Cool, those are feeling really good right here. Let's move on and let's add in the bass. So the bass, level-wise, I usually want it sitting right in between the -12 and the -24 mark. Anywhere in that area is going to sit pretty well with the kick drum. From there on out, it's pretty much just about balancing it with the bottom end on the kick drum. If your bass has more bottom end, you pull it a little bit lower. If it has less, you can push it a little bit higher. But anywhere in this area usually feels pretty good to me, just about balancing it with the kick drum from there. Once you find the spot where the bass clicks right in with the kick drum, any half dB move up or down kind of throws everything out of whack. Once you find that pocket, it's going to sit perfectly right there. Moving up or down will throw kind of everything in the bottom end out of whack. So listen, I'll do little half dB moves right here from this negative 0.8 dB, and you'll hear how a half dB down sounds a lot more drastic than a half dB usually does. You'll know exactly when you find that pocket because the bottom end of the bass and the bottom end of the kick drum are going to sit perfectly in harmony there. And we are actually right in the middle here between our negative 12 and negative 24 mark. I'm going to pull in the piano here first and then balance the rhythm guitars against that. If there is a piano track inside of a song and it is pretty rhythmic, it sits right with the guitars, I'll usually pull the piano in first because I'm biased. I'm a keyboard player, so I'll usually pull that in first here. So let's pull up the piano tracks. Cool, that's feeling good. I pulled in the guitars there too to kind of level everything together. Building the main melodic instruments in the track, you kind of usually have to do as a group sometimes, and then once you get them sitting good together, then you can balance them against the drums and the bass. So I pulled in the piano as well as the rhythm guitar there. Those are feeling really good at that spot. You can see I messed a little bit with the piano level to kind of find the right spot, and then just balancing the guitars against that. Usually the main melodic element that you pull in, I like to put, again, right in between the negative 12 and negative 24 marks there. Main guitars, I'll usually kind of do the same thing, anywhere between negative 12 and negative 24. Sits pretty good, but once you get your main instrument in, so I kind of use the piano as the main instrument here, it's just about balancing everything against that, and then balancing that group against your drums and bass. So I'm going to pull in the organ, and then maybe I'll let it run into the solo, and I'll pull up the lead guitar here as well. That's feeling really good. You could see I kind of kept pushing up the organ more and more there. Any kind of pad element, strings, organ, or any kind of pads like that that are long and droning, you can pull them pretty high sometimes, and they can kind of just tickle on the outside there, especially kind of like a B3 organ sound like this. Really helps to fill out a track. And then I kept it in stereo to pull up the lead guitar so I could kind of set it in the middle of everything here. I'm going to flip back to mono. We're going to put in, we'll throw in our background vocals first here, and then we'll flip over to a verse section to pull in the lead vocal here. So background vocals kind of work in the same way there as pulling up keys and guitars that are pan stereo. I want to get it set in mono so I know I can hear it, and then I'll flip out to stereo to see how everything feels when it does pan wide. We're going to flip back to the verse section here, and we'll take a listen, get our lead vocal set in. So I am going to flip back to mono here.
On that horizon, far away from the neon sky, I know there must be something better. I can't see another day. Nothing grows in life ain't very pretty. No one's there to catch you when you fall. Somewhere out on that horizon, far away from the neon sky, I know there must be something better. I can't see another night in the city.
That's feeling really, really good to me. So I'm just going to play this final section here one more time, the verse into the chorus, and I'll let it run a little bit into the solo as well. And you can hear our final balance for everything here in this track. So that's kind of the way I'm working here. Drums, bass, keys and guitars, background vocals, and then lead vocals in here for this track. Here is our final level balance for this song.
Somewhere out on that horizon, far away from the neon sky, I know there must be something better. I can't see another night in the city.
That is how we're setting levels here. That is my process for setting levels in a mix, starting with the drums, getting our kick drum and snare drum set, and then building everything on top of that. So bringing in our cymbals, our toms, any kind of percussion, then setting our bass with our kick drum and using that to put our guitars and our keys on top of, and then using our instrumental track as a bed to lay in our background vocals and, of course, our lead vocal as well. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're ready to take your mixes to the next level and really start dialing in your workflow as an audio engineer, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and you can download it below to start creating more professional mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching here today, and I will see you in the next video.